Welcome to money4mzansi, working toward a joy economy for all in South Africa by 2030. This is the fourth video in a four-part video series. If you have not watched the previous three videos, please do so because they describe the background and reasoning for why we need money4mzansi's proposed plan for South Africa. We ended the third video with the fourth of South Africa's economic development constraints identified by money4mzansi. And it is manual labor-fueled export-led growth is no longer possible due to premature deindustrialization. Basically, it's automation, and that no one in the world is really interested in South Africa's manual labor capability. And this is a big problem because much of the National Development Plan still assumes that we are going to have export-led growth fueled by manual labor, but this isn't going to happen. So there's much in the National Development Plan which is fine and good, but it doesn't address some very fundamental issues, which is the reason why we're still growing at 0% in South Africa, economic growth, our GDP growth. And these issues are simply not addressed in the National Development Plan, and that is why money4mzansi developed another plan which will address these underlying issues. So let's look at money4mzansi's plan for South Africa. Step number one is we have to commit to a Hamiltonian approach of national development. This is just doing the same as every country that has ever successfully developed has done before. The same. The only slight difference for us is it's going to have to be driven by domestic growth. There will be export. Export is great. But if we think we're going to export ourselves out of this hole we're in, with manual labor especially, keep on dreaming, it's never going to happen. So the elements of this plan is to focus on government-directed debt-based money creation. Number two is massive infrastructure investment by government, building the infrastructure that we desperately need, but thereby also stimulating the economy. And number three, protecting, nurturing, and developing our local manufacturing industry. Now, this must be done in a broad, transparent economic activation via an open economy enabled by open digital money. And I'll explain more about this, but the point is we cannot use the same kind of money system we have now. And it must be an open economy. And I'll talk more about why this is important. So using this infrastructure for this money that we create in this Hamiltonian approach, the first step is to create 1 trillion rand of zero interest societal debt money, digital money, and invest it in core infrastructure, roads, water reticulation, etc. Fourth step is we create another trillion rand, zero interest societal debt, digital money, and we invest that into high quality social housing, public housing, social housing. South Africa desperately needs massive amounts of infrastructure. So let's start activating our millions of unemployed people and build the infrastructure we have. We need it. We should get on with building it. And money is our mechanism of coordination. So let's create the money so that we can build the infrastructure that we need. And lastly, another trillion rand, phase introduction of digital money, negative income tax, moving toward a universal basic income. Now, the 2 trillion rand in point 3 and 4, we need to basically start around 2018. And we will create this money on a rolling base as projects progress through to 2026. So by 2026, 2027, we should have a lot of the infrastructure that we need completed. And at this time, not at this time, but at about 2021, we need to really consider then supplementing incomes by a universal basic income, but hopefully before that, already a negative income tax. And we'll talk a bit more about that. So let's just go through this plan in a sort of a visual way, what it's all about. So we as a country commit to migrating ourselves to a joy economy by 2030. And as we saw in the previous videos, that means by 2030, We want all the infrastructure that we need built. Homes, water reticulation, transport systems, everything. We want it all. We're going to build it all by 2030. And not only that, we are also going to automate the production of core safety and sustenance products and services. Not only their production, but also their distribution. So that we end up in a joy economy like the rest of the developed world by 2030. So this is our commitment as a country to achieving that. And we can go about it in the following way. Like I said, the first trillion rand we create towards the creation of core infrastructure, roads, water reticulation, etc. Now, the next trillion rand goes towards social housing, public housing. This is what much of the developed world has done. If you look at Europe, full of social housing. If you look at Singapore, poster child of successful development, social housing. Hong Kong, social housing. Social housing. We need social housing, people. We don't want people sleeping on the streets in small little RDP houses in the bundus far away from everywhere. We need to develop high quality social housing in our cities. Now this 2 trillion rand, this goes into construction. Now that's great because we cannot automate construction. Well, we will be able to, but certainly not before 2028, 2030, somewhere there, before we will really be able to properly automate construction. So construction is the perfect place to employ our citizens. And whilst we employ our citizens towards building the infrastructure that our citizens, that we all need, that stimulates the economy. And that makes it clear to our entrepreneurs in South Africa that people have more money to spend. And we need to protect our local manufacturing industry. Because if we just create 2 trillion rand and buy everything from China, we will be bankrupt very quickly. So by speeding up our local infrastructure creation, we also have to match it by increased local production of goods and services. And we're going to focus on automating this as much as we possibly can. So on the one hand, there's construction work, which is very difficult to automate, and we can use it to employ millions of our people. And then we also use that money to create automated infrastructure as much as possible for production of local goods and services, which can also, of course, be used for export. But the focus is we need to use it for domestic consumption. Now, if everything is automated in production and services, and let's say by 2025 we have 2027, we've built a lot of our core infrastructure that we need, we'd still have the problem that people won't have jobs, and they won't be able to buy the stuff that is produced by the machines. And that is why we need to move towards a universal basic income. It's inescapable. We are not going to create 10 million engineers designing robots. Forget it. It's ridiculous. It's laughable. What we can, however, do is incentivize, let's say, 2 million additional entrepreneurs which are well educated. And these entrepreneurs use their brains collaboratively and create automated production infrastructure. And for the rest of society, well, it's going to be basically about sharing the amount of manual labor remaining, because there will still be manual labor remaining, but we can share it. And people can work maybe 1 or 2 days a week doing the required manual labor that is still necessary in our society by 2028. But they are supplemented by a universal basic income, which will basically be the system where money gets distributed to everyone at the end of the month, let's say, And then the consumption round starts, and everyone is buying goods and services, buying goods and services, buying goods and services, and this money is then taxed back into a central pool, and it is then again distributed. Now, there will be the folks that are in the productive side of the economy, they will get better perks. They will have the nicer cars, they will have bigger houses and whatever else. But no one is going to be without a house. No one is going to be without food. So everyone gets a reasonable share from what basically the machines produce, as well as the let's say 4 or 5 million entrepreneurs, engineers, knowledge workers in the country. So by doing that, this is it. This is what we need to do in South Africa. We need to build all the infrastructure we need. We need to increase our local manufacturing capability, and we need to start introducing a universal basic income as we move towards joy economy by 2030. Now, this is completely doable. This is doable. But we need to, as a society, decide to do this. We can either do this, or we can live in shacks and protest, and others can hide behind their electric fences and hope for a miracle. Well, a miracle isn't going to happen. We need to do something. So let's look at some of the requirements for being able to do this successfully. The first and most important point is this newly created societal money is not for the enrichment of a few, but it is for the upliftment of society as a whole. It is our commitment to get to a joy economy. And we'll cover these points in a bit more detail in following slides. The second point is the money created to facilitate and track infrastructure creation and negative tax rate and universal basic income must be created at a societal level with 0% interest. And dormant money may be charged at a negative interest rate, but more about this later. Newly created societal money occurs only on an open, digital, blockchain-based platform where it is possible to see exactly who has how much of the money. Now, this is a very big difference to how our country currently operates. As we saw, most 97% or thereabouts of money in South Africa is created by private banks as they finance business cases. We're not going to do much of that as we execute this plan. Majority of money is going to come into society as we identify the core infrastructure and social housing infrastructure that our country desperately needs. And we're going to create this money we need to activate people towards building the infrastructure we need via mostly, we propose, municipal structures. And this money is created on a project basis, on a digital blockchain-based platform where we can see exactly who has how much of the money. As stated before, growth in the production economy must absorb newly created digital money for infrastructure creation, else a balance of trade and inflation issues will occur. And this is good news for entrepreneurs. If we know that per year an additional couple of 100 billion rand is coming into the economy because of infrastructure, and we know that we have all committed to this plan to migrate to a joy economy by 2030, well, then there's no leap of faith necessary. We know there will be customers, we know they will have money, we know we're going to protect our local industry, and therefore we are going to start creating more and more factories producing what we need locally. Again, point 4 above will require either protection of selected local industries via tariffs and or, so it's not or, it's and or, by not allowing the digital money to be used for foreign exchange transactions. So I'll talk about this a bit more in another slide. And the last thing is that money4mzansi believes in decentralization and competition. Okay, we're not proposing some communist fantasy where everybody just gets the same amount of money and everyone is just happy to do work. No, we commit to this plan, but we also enable the flourishing of human ingenuity and human motivations, human nature. So decentralization and competition is critical for this plan to succeed. So let's go into each one of these points in a bit more detail. Newly created societal money is not for the enrichment of a few, but for the upliftment of society as a whole. The money that we jointly create in our country for the creation of the infrastructure that we need is basically the manifestation of our joint societal commitment to migrate to a joy economy by 2030. Money is the manifestation of societal asset creation plans. And we need a massive amount of infrastructure, massive amounts of assets created in our country. So we need to create the money to build these assets. So the money is the manifestation of our national commitment to achieving this by 2030. And this money must be created on public project platforms and exchanged only on an open digital blockchain-based platform where it is possible to see exactly who has how much of the money. So the first point is we don't just create this money at some high level and we don't know what money was created for. The nature of blockchain money is such that we can track every coin. The nature of digital money, we can track every coin. And as we saw in the previous videos, debt is money, money is debt, credit is money, money is credit. And the money is basically the manifestation of a societal value creation promise. And the value that we'll be creating is the infrastructure that we need and the housing that we need for our citizens. So when we create money, it should be attached to a specific value creation project. Let's say for some block in Johannesburg, we're going to create a new 10-story, 5-story, whatever the case may be, high quality social housing building. And the money is created then for that purpose. And everyone in the whole country can see how much money was created, for which purpose, where is it going? And not only that, we can see who has the money. So all of this money is created on the single national blockchain platform. And it's spent into society to create the infrastructure that we need. And as it is spent into society, each one of us can see where every single digital coin came from. Which project was it related to? Why was this little digital coin here created? Well, it was for that building over there on the corner of X and Y Street in Johannesburg. And we can see where the coin is now. Maybe it is with Vusi, because he had a construction company that was part of building this building, and we can see that some of the money has now ended up with Vusi. And if Vusi spends that money, we can see that some of the money has ended up with someone else. So we will be able to see the balance of everyone with respect to this digital money that we create. And there's much more information on our website and in the books that we point to and that we have written, explaining why this is absolutely vital to a future functioning society. To summarize this point, this money is a manifestation of our societal commitment to a joy economy by 2030. It is not to make a couple of people rich. We don't want lots of corruption. We don't want lots of inefficiency. So we as a society are going to know exactly what is being done with this money, which is a manifestation of our joint commitment to a joy economy. We want to know if it ends up in the hands of the corrupt. We want to know if it ends up in the hands of a few multi-billionaires, because we didn't create this money to create multi-billionaires. We created this money to have a functioning society providing a life of safety and sustenance to all in South Africa. And that is why this money must be publicly visible. Where is it? Where did it come from? And who owns it now? As stated before, growth in the production economy must absorb newly created digital money for infrastructure creation. Else we'll have a balance of trade and a problem or inflation issues will occur. So yes, we're going to create and spend a lot of money as we build the core infrastructure that we need. So, what kind of manufacturing should we promote? Well, if we're going to be building millions of apartments, it'll probably be a good idea to focus our manufacturing on what goes inside these apartments. So, basic furniture, basic appliances, clothes, shoes, the everyday things of life. We can, if there are entrepreneurs that want to, they can try to build the latest, greatest plasma or LCD or whatever the case may be, television sets, and try to sell them to the rest of the world. But our focus is not to lead the world in the latest, greatest tech gadgets. Some folks in South Africa are free to go about doing that, and it's fantastic and so great for them, and it's good for the country as well. But our core focus is basically import substitution of basic goods. And the basic goods are the things that go into apartments and the things that we eat. So agriculture, food, basic goods in apartments. That is the focus of this manufacturing that we must do in South Africa. Now, the accelerated local production will either require protection of selected local industries via tariffs, or by not allowing the digital money to be used for foreign exchange transactions. As we saw in previous videos, we have small little fish in South Africa, and it is very difficult for us to compete against the best manufacturers in the world. But if we don't increase our manufacturing capability and capacity, then we will not be able to absorb the additional money we create as we jack up massively our infrastructure creation. So we don't have a choice. If we want to have much more infrastructure, which we desperately need, then we need to jack up our manufacturing capacity for basic goods and services. And to give our local competitors the opportunity to do so, and the space within which to learn and become better. And if we want to ensure that all the money we create doesn't end up in America or China or wherever the case may be, then we have to protect our local industries. And we do that either by tariffs, which is then per specific product range, that we say it's 25% on furniture and it's 17% on washing machines and 10% on shoes or whatever the case may be. And there'll be negotiations and lots of complexity around trying to figure this out. Or we make it much simpler and we say all this money that we create on this one single national digital money platform for the societal money which we're creating, all of that money will not be usable for foreign exchange transactions. That's it. So it's one blanket rule, easy to manage and easy to implement. Some of the payment systems may have to, be some tricky work to get the payment systems well integrated and so forth, but it's entirely possible with the technology available today. So it can be a blanket statement saying that all of this money that we create can only be used to buy products and services locally. Now, this is entirely feasible. If we start importing less, then we need less money to go outside the country to buy things that we need to import from other countries like petrol or electronic goods. But we will still be exporting. We will still be exporting minerals, and as we jack up our production capability, we should be exporting to the rest of Africa. If we commit to this plan, South Africa will be as a good shot at being the manufacturing powerhouse of Africa, and we'll be able to export and get lots of natural resources, oil and whatever else from Angola, and gas and so on from Mozambique and so forth. So there'll be opportunity to import still what we need, and by exporting. So it may be the best idea to just say all of this money we create via these mechanisms stays in the country. Cannot buy foreign goods. But we'll see about that. So, money4mzansi believes in the creative capability of citizens, not in the centralized wisdom of the select few. Economic activity must be decentralized and competitive. So, please, money4mzansi is not about some special super duper person in some central location deciding that we need so much baked beans and we need so much corn and we need so many chairs of this type. Nonsense. Okay. What we can and have to plan centrally is infrastructure creation. You don't just decide that we're going to build a building over here today and then we're going to raise it to the ground again tomorrow. Buildings last for hundreds of years. So we can centrally plan building of massive amounts of infrastructure. What we shouldn't centrally do is plan all the products and goods and services that we produce. Human ingenuity is best at figuring out that. And also, we will not be executing this infrastructure creation via state entities. So we create the money via state entities, but we should promote many hundreds, thousands of construction companies that can compete against each other. So we don't want the socialist disasters of Venezuela, the Soviet Union, where everyone pretends to work and the state pretends to pay you. And if you go to your shop to buy something with a little money you got, there is nothing there because we have gone against the basics of human nature. So we like VUSIs. We want many VUSIs to create business plans, take risk, and if they do well, make profit, and if they don't do well, face losses and face bankruptcy. Because these are the right motivating factors for us to produce excellent products and services. So we want decentralization and competition in core infrastructure creation, as well as the manufacturing of basic goods needed in South Africa. The only big difference is, and banks are not going to be particularly excited about this aspect of money4mzansi's plan, but the majority of money creation will then occur through open, transparent municipal structures for the creation of the core infrastructure and social housing that our country needs. And this will crowd out a significant portion of money creation from the banks. But banks will still be critical for the reallocation of this money. And we will need to have our citizens invest more in funds and investment accounts for the efficient reallocation of this money toward asset creation. But there's been many experiments with universal basic income showing that when you satisfy the basics of people, there's more opportunity for ingenuity. So the key here is we need to still have decentralization and competition in the production of goods and services. So that's money4mzansi's plan for South Africa at a high level. There is much more detail in the books that we prescribe or promote, or not promoting for selling, but that we can recommend for background and that we have written to explain the details of this plan. And we are very keen to work with others in South Africa. This is a high-level plan, and it needs fleshing out in the details and the collaborative infrastructure needs creation, etc., etc. But at a high level, the plan is commit to a Hamiltonian approach of development in South Africa. Commit to creating this societal money for core infrastructure creation, societal, social housing, as well as moving to a negative income tax and eventually universal basic income. And that we do this in the manner that is being specified with open economy, broadly distributed, decentralization, competition, etc. Again, high-level plan only, much more detail available on our site and in the book Societal Renaissance. The plan is a work in progress, and we need you to improve, expand, and execute it. So the next steps are to spread awareness. So please like, follow, and share money4mzansi on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Join us and help to organize community events to inform and organize our fellow citizens. We need to spread awareness of this Hamiltonian approach and this societal blockchain-based open money system. We need to realize citizen, business, and government commitment, and we need to do this urgently. We need to establish by early 2018 a public project platform for societal money creation, similar to Kickstarter. This is the place where we can see which projects are being funded with the societal money, and we can look at mechanisms for this being approved at a municipal level by citizens. There must be a digital money and wallet platform for money exchange. And we need to figure out import tariff agreements and or local money only agreements. And by 2018, we need to start building toward our joy economy for 2030. If we don't start in 2018, we don't have a chance to reach 2030. If we start in 2020, we'll only be able to finish probably in 2032. But we need to, the earlier we start, the sooner we can get to a joy economy in South Africa where we've created all our infrastructure that we need, and we have automated the production of core safety and sustenance services, just like the rest of the world. Thank you. Money4mzansi, working toward a joy economy for all in South Africa by 2020, and we have